And
Let you guess. Shall we just all guess?
what I'm going to do is I'm going to mute everybody, and then when it's your turn to talk, if you could, well, no, I'll unmute you because I think it seems to work quicker if I unmute you rather than you doing it. So what we'll do is we'll just go around our screen and in the order that we've got there. And it just so happens that Arthur's first, so he has to introduce somebody. And it won't let me unmute. Oh, there we go. Wouldn't let me do it.
Shall I introduce myself because I didn't already?
Yeah.
I guess you better had, yeah.
Okay. I'm Arthur and I live near Rothbury in Northumberland, near Simonside. I've joined the group. I've got my ML and SPA and I volunteer for Christian Adventure Holidays. And so I really want to keep my skills up to date. And from my point of view, to have access to Chris for questions about anything climbing, really, routes, conditions, or kit. So that's me.
Thank you. Okay, Phil.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great. Hi, I'd like to introduce Michael Bennett. And Michael's somebody who I've obviously just met this evening, who is originally from Preston in Lancashire, but has taken the long journey south to the Cheltenham area where he now resides. And Michael's reasoning for joining the mentoring group is that he's really interested in the Mountain Leader scheme, and it's something that he wants to push on with. But as with probably everybody, he's been hindered by recent events, but he's still got all the enthusiasm there, and he still wants to get stuck in. So that's why he's here.
Great.
Lovely. Thank you, Phil. John Martin.
Yeah, I'm going to introduce Dominic, who lives in County Durham, which has been in the news quite recently, being near Barnard Castle. So he's got very good eyesight. And actually, I actually drive past it on my way up to the lakes. He's got the RCI award. He's working for the RCI award. That's what it is. And that's the reason he's joined this group.
Thank you, John. Thanks.
Okay, thanks.
Sharon.
I'm not actually sure who I'm introducing. Tom, should I do you again? Is that all right? Anyone? Tom? Charles? I can't hear what you're saying. I'll introduce Tom, but I kind of only know a bit about Tom. Okay. Because I was on the call last time with Tom, so I've just got my notes from last time. But I have found a new bit of information about Tom, about his Cheshire Wives posse. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to share or not.
Cheshire Wives.
No, I'm not supposed to share that, am I not? It's too late, I'm going for it. So Tom used to have an animal feed company. He's now a consultant, spends loads of time in the hills. He has his, he lives in Wales, very, very adventurous. Climbing's kind of his main thing. And he obviously guides people as well. He has 3 kids, I think. Is that right, Tom? Tom's not playing now because we're talking about Cheshire Wives. Apparently Tom does a lot of guiding as well with the lovely ladies of Cheshire. Apparently he's a bit of a hit, and that's his key target audience. And I wasn't allowed to find out any more, but I'm getting the thumbs up. That's it. I'll say no more. Move on.
Thanks, Sharon. Sorry, just muted myself by accident when I meant to mute Sharon. Next is Charles, who is otherwise known as Liz.
That's it, yeah. You can see who wears the trousers in our household and sets up the computers, can't you? I'm to introduce Alistair. Alistair is from the lovely city of Glasgow, if anybody knows it really well. It's a fabulous place. Moved from down south, made the fatal error of going out with a Glaswegian lady, and now has 2 children up there. So he's got a full-time job. Once he's already done his ML, did his training about 8 years ago, and assessment about 3 years ago, and he's got his eye on doing his MIA. Is that correct? I don't know. You've moved on my screen now. That's correct. Yeah. So he's in a good location where he is to get up into the higher hills, but obviously there's very little immediately locally sitting around Glasgow. And his objective, or the reason for joining mentoring, is that if he can get his MIA and stay married, then that'll be a win-win solution.
Great, thank you, Charles. Thank you. Yeah, everybody's moved slightly, so I'm a little bit confused now, but I think we're up to Dominic.
That was Phil's fault.
Yeah, Phil moved position on
Troublemaker.
the
He's
screen.
always causing trouble.
I guess I'll introduce Gareth. I forgot where he's from, but I would say south of County Durham, and that now is that broadens it out. Gareth's interested. He's done his ML training, and he's just wanting to get more experience, and he's doing the mentoring just to pick up hints, and also as a sort of push to help, sort of confidence to go for his assessment. And I think that's what he's doing, and just brush up on stuff and getting out more.
Thank you. He's in Leeds.
Leeds. Oh yeah, climbing. Sorry, Leeds ball.
Thanks, Dominic. Thank you. Roz.
Hello.
Hi.
You can hear me. Grant. I'm going to introduce Phil Brown, no relation. Phil is in Northumberland, and my geography, I shouldn't admit this, on a mountain mentor scheme is crap, and I didn't know whereabouts in Northumberland he was, but he described it as 2 miles west of Newcastle Airport. And he's joined the mentoring to enhance his skills and knowledge and meet up with like-minded people, and he said he was part of the trial and it was great and he got loads from it. So that bodes very well for all of us, I think.
Thanks, Roz. We haven't had Tom yet.
No.
Tom. Tom, can you unmute yourself?
Yep.
Because yeah, there you go.
Yep, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I would like to introduce Sharon after she did a character assassination on me. Sharon has done her training ML. She was hoping to do her assessment this year, but due to coronavirus, she's going to put it off till next year. She lives in Kendal, and she does virtually anything: fell running, mountain biking, anything in the outdoors, except getting wet, which I think living in Kendal, that's a very odd thing because it's a lot very wet in Kendal. You join the mentoring scheme to meet people and learn, and as well as get your ML next year, obviously share from everyone's wealth of knowledge. And she loves chocolate.
Very excellent. Thank you, Tom. Next is Alistair. You could unmute yourself, please.
Hiya. Yeah,
Hi.
I'm introducing Charles. I think a lot of you know him. He's moved to the lakes a couple of years ago to Ambleside and is doing up a house, I believe. And he's joined the mentoring scheme really to improve his climbing for personal reasons, mainly to help him improve his efficiency on the longer routes and just to continue some learning. I think he's pleased with the way that his progression has gone on. I noticed the guns were out on Facebook when he led that HVS. So he's obviously doing okay. And that's for Liz.
Thanks, Alistair. Okay, Carlo, you need to unmute yourself. It's not letting me do it.
Okay, I'm here to introduce Rose Brown, and as she claims, she's not related to Phil Brown. And she said it earlier again. She lives near Bristol, and she looks very enthusiastic and bubbly. And she's booked the mountain leader assessment with Chris in June, but it had to be postponed because of the current situation. And she's joined the mentor scheme program because she claims that Chris twisted her arm. and that's about it. But so she says.
Thanks, Carlo.
Twisted my arm for ML assessment.
Thank you. Michael.
Hello. I think I've unmuted myself, have I?
Yes, you have.
Excellent. Technology works for a change. I'm introducing Carlo. Carlo is Italian. You may not have realised, but he is. He does currently reside in Bolton in Lancashire and works in near Preston in Lancashire, which, as has been just described, is very useful to me because that's where my parents are from. And so I've now found a new Italian takeaway of preference because that is what he does really between these mountaineering activities. So that's fantastic for me, and so thank you to Chris and everybody else for setting up the scheme because you know, that's a win-win as far as I can see. With regard to why Carlo is here, though, after all this is about him rather than me, it's really here to gain confidence in his skills, not necessarily professionally, but he might go in that direction because he does have an interest in photography recreationally, and he might like to get involved in taking people out for that sort of purpose. So far, he's done his ML training last November, and he's also Lowland Leader assessed as well. Plenty of interest in him over a few years, including Duke of Edinburgh and the like, and he's just keen to get stuck in and do some more.
Thanks, Michael. Gareth.
Right, I am introducing John. John lives in probably the flattest city in the UK, which is really good for his aim to do his ML assessment. He lives in Cambridge. He's got a couple of kids who sound like they're mad keen on getting into the outdoors, or whether it's John who's trying to persuade them to be mad keen on getting into the outdoors, I'm not entirely certain. So he's did his ML training a couple of years ago, and he's going for his assessment, and it sounds like we're both going to be on the same assessment course in October. If you're unlucky, John, you can share a tent with me.
Thank you, Gareth. Phil, have you introduced somebody?
Yes, I've introduced Michael Bennett as well as making a with all of the grids here. So sorry about that.
Who has not been introduced? Oh, everybody has. Great. Thank you. Okay, so if you've got a question for Chris or for anybody else here, just unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yeah, I've got one, Chris.
Gareth, yeah.
To do with rope work and knots for ML. I know you're supposed to use the overhand knot, but I've been climbing for so long that doing figure of 8 is just second nature, and it will be my knot of preference. I very often find when I'm practicing doing overhands, I end up doing a figure of 8 anyway. Would that be okay on assessment?
You just need to tie safe knots, Gareth. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
So, you know, people, I actually quite often teach people how to do a bowline because particularly when threading through things, it's much quicker to do than you know, if you're threading it round a big block or something, it's easier to do than a figure 8 or an overhand really in that usage. But the requirement is that you can just do everything with an overhand knot, but really you just need to tie safe knots.
Yeah.
And the steep ground day, for those of you people who have done their ML assessment, is not, I'm not particularly bothered about any knots in particular apart from that they're tied safely. It's much more about picking lines and looking after people on steep ground. So, you know, yeah, okay, so you have emergency use of the rope, but it's much more about your own personal movement on the ground and being able to look after people effectively and being comfortable on the ground that you're on.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah.
Chris, I've got a question.
Yes, Alistair.
It's about wild swimming, actually.
Yeah.
So hypothetically, I've been doing a lot of walking in the Campsie Hills and the Kilpatricks, just north of Glasgow, on these really hot days, and I've mainly just been looking for pools actually in the streams, which I knew were there, and found quite a few and went swimming. And I was doing that with a couple of friends, well, a friend, in the last week. And it was just a general question on it, you know, if you're taking someone out for whatever, climbing, walking, they're paying you. It's a hot day, you're walking past, and you know everyone, they want to get in. Where do you sit with that?
Yeah, it's a really good question. You might be aware that there's sort of more people got themselves into trouble in the mountains from wild swimming than has from mountaineering in recent years. You know, so yeah, I think two things to be aware of are the whole cold shock thing, particularly when it is hot. You know, being aware of that and being able to negate against that somewhat by, you know, splashing water around your head and around your ears, splashing some water on your face. You're much less likely to sort of take that involuntary breath in. So when I do gill scrambling, sort of training for people, I say, look before you leap, swim before you jump. So if you are going to jump into any pools, then I always encourage them to take a pair of little swimming goggles and have a little paddle around in the pool and feel what's in there, have a good look around. So that's one side. So there's a sort of a duty of care thing to make sure the pool's actually okay to jump into. Particularly if they're going to jump in, I try and discourage people from jumping in, to be honest. Then there's the whole cold shock thing. So doing it in shallow pools, probably less of a problem than doing it in bigger, deeper, colder pools. It is all potentially a bit of a nightmare, to be honest. You know, like you'll be aware that mountain streams and mountain tarns stay very cold, even on pretty hot days, you know. Yeah, it's a difficult one. So I would go be very careful. There's been problems. Be a bit careful how I word this. So there can be pressure, particularly if you've got a group of people and they're young, on if some are going in and some are not. You know, and some people from certain ethnic backgrounds tend not to be very water confident, but sometimes feel pressured into going into the water, and so just be aware of that. Yeah. Tom's asking a question.
Can I just ask a question on that as well?
Sorry, I was just going to say one thing, Chris, and that was, where does your responsibility stop and start? Because as a mountain leader, you've been tested to navigate steep ground, rope work, everything else. Yeah. But your swimming credentials have never been tested once.
No.
So if they go into the water, you know, I've never led a group that's wanted to jump in the water, but where does it stop and start?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So yeah, will be qualified. You know, I long time ago did a lifeguarding thing, you know, like, so, but that's well out of date. So mine isn't either, you know, like, it's a difficult one. You know, I would make it really clear that if they do want to go in the water, that they're sort of doing that at their own risk, and just point out there are no lifeguards up here. There's nobody who's going to come pull you out. You know, my encouragement to people is if they want to go, because say you're doing a wild camp and it's been really hot. There's this lovely beck right next to where you're camping, and people want to have a bit of a wash in it. Well, they're not swimming; they're walking into the water and dunking themselves to have a wash. maybe that's pedantic, it's sort of semantic, you know, but I think there's something different there to you're going to somewhere where there is a deep pool where they can't touch the bottom, and, you know, you're maybe encouraging or you've sold it as part of the day. There is a very famous case, unfortunately, for the people from Lancashire that you might remember. There was a Glenridding school child that was drowned, and they were taken out by a so-called ML. It turned out he wasn't ever assessed, and he was just ML trained. And they jumped into a beck when it was just like the Dud Cozy, you know, like it was just pumping, and there was all sorts of things wrong with it, you know. But anyway, the chap was having an affair with the lady. The child was the lady's son that drowned. He was a lot smaller than the other kid. You know, they were walking towards where they were going to go swimming. There was groups coming back who were saying, "Carl, there's no way we're going in there." This was in August, and I happened to be taking a group of firemen out. Now, firemen are pretty good at, you know, looking after themselves in pretty dodgy situations. And we were in a beck in Langdale. It was some of the highest water levels I've ever seen. And we were having a really exciting time just playing at the edge of the beck. And this guy got these kids to jump right into the middle of an absolutely pumping beck. And so anyway, so historically, there is a big potential problem there, and it's a big can of worms, you know. And yeah, but yeah, being careful, being cautious, yeah, it's difficult.
Chris, can I just add one thing from like one of the things that I'm a rescue diver as well. One of my other interests. So one of the things they teach you on the rescue diver course is that if you get someone that's in trouble in swimming, they're likely going to pull you under. So think about things you can use instead of yourself to rescue. Like if you've got your rope in there, throw your rope out first and try and get them to hold onto the rope. The last thing you want to do is go in after them, because they will likely pull you under. And if you do go in, if you have to go in, make sure you go around the back of them, so they can't grab you, and you just grab them.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, thank you. I teach that when I'm doing gill scrambling. I say you should carry a big long sling over your shoulder just for that usage. You know, if somebody is struggling, you can throw them that sling. It's really quick and easy to get out, and you know, it's a good thing to carry if you are getting involved in water. But I think it's a really good question, Alistair, and it does open a whole can of worms, which we're getting to here. Anybody else got?
On my rescue diver course, they give you the red can like David Hasselhoff in Baywatch. So if you ever want to do something like that, definitely recommend it.
Yeah.
I just put the other side of it, though, that we were out, you were working with a family. Yeah. And of course, it's a different situation if you're with a family, because the parents are there with the children as well. And we were up on Bullfell, and it was a really hot day, and we came back down Oxendale, and there's a fantastic pool with a waterfall going into it, and we were all in there. But the responsibility then wasn't Chris's, because the parents were there with the children. So, I mean, obviously, he was saying to the parents, it's okay for us all to do this together. But so there's different situations, isn't there? And in that situation, it was absolutely fine.
Yeah.
And it was great fun. It was really good.
Sorry, Chris, can everybody hear me? I think it's having with my, I suppose, based on my experience running businesses and being on the receiving end of negative litigation historically, I really advocate serious care when you're looking at situations like this, because you've got to make instant judgment calls at times on things like swimming in a beck. And I would be very, very reticent about supporting that in any way, shape or form, because we are becoming a far more litigious society. It's all coming from America or whatever you want to say. I don't know if anybody's a solicitor in this call. And, you know, you will have your backside sued off you if a child by the parents, if a child ends up getting hurt. And if they're doing a risk assessed, walk in the mountains, climbing, navigation, camping overnight, or anything like that, that's fine. But if they slip and twist their ankle, then I'm sure everything's properly covered and insured. But if you suddenly end up with, as Chris was saying, a group of them decide they want to go swimming in the Tarn, I think you would have to actually prove beyond reasonable doubt that you had either fully risk assessed it, or you'd instructed them not to do it because of the risks that were involved, or put something in process to try and cover yourself for that. And it's very, very difficult to do so. It's a sad case that I think society has changed significantly in my lifetime, but we've got to work in that society, and parents expect providers to take full and utter responsibility for their children, and also for themselves at times. So I can see Ros is nodding, so I'm guessing you might have a bit of experience of this as well. So that's just my sensitivity.
I was away last year and I was in charge of, they were adults, they were undergraduates in a rainforest, and we had a river which was unexpected and accessible, and I had to do extensive written risk assessments, and they only trusted me to do it because I had whitewater safety and rescue and I had my dive master as well. So because I had specific qualifications in water sports, they let me risk assess it, and that all went back to head office, and there was a paper trail and all sorts. And then we had heavy rain and it all had to change, so it was that process. That was why I was nodding. Yeah, we had to go through all of that.
Yeah, so I think, so it's a really good question, and it is, potential big can of worms. Something that, so when I was working for Lancashire County Council and because this Glen Reading thing happened with the Lancashire group, they're particularly hot on it. And so something that we used to talk about was just letting them go in, but never go above their, kind of like above their knee deep or something, so you go, okay, well, if they're going to go into a tarn, they can go and have a splash about, they can cool their feet off, but they never go. It's just a thing that you can think about, so there are ways that you can say a yes, but without saying no, where I think that's reasonable, they can go and have a play in the water, but they're not actually swimming. So. Yes.
Quite hard to retain control over a group in the water as well. If you say go in over your knees, then they start inching a little bit further, and before you know it, you end up with everybody swimming around the place.
Exactly. Yeah. No, it's very much a judgment call, isn't it? Made about the group that you've got and the situation that you're in. Yeah. But being aware that it is potentially dodgy, is a good thing to go into it, being aware of.
So where does gill scrambling fit into this kind of discussion?
So I do a lot of training and assessment actually for gill scrambling. I've done some with Arthur relatively recently, and so where does it sit? So it sits in there are some specific now qualifications for it, but most people that actually deliver it have probably a mountain leader award. Quite a lot of them will have a rock climbing award, and will have done a site specific training and assessment, so they'll be passed out on particular gills by a particular person, who's gone along and go, look, watch out for this is a no-go level on this, if the water's higher than this you just can't do it. These are specific hazards to watch out for. This is how to mitigate against them. So that's generally how it's dealt with.
Yeah, it's a bit like when I used to take groups down caving. You'd always go down the cave first, and you'd be given the tour of the cave, and you can do this there, but don't go down there, and that kind of thing. Before they let you loose on your own.
Yeah, site specific stuff. Yeah. Anybody else? Yeah, sure.
Kind of sticking on the water and river theme, really. So in training, you do a river crossing. I guess 2 questions. Do you do the same again in assessment, and also just what everyone's experience is of people that have passed the assessment? Has anyone ever had to do like an emergency river crossing, and I know it varies from situations, but generally is it avoided at all costs, or sometimes if you just have to do it, do you just do it? I know there's lots of variables, but just how often does that come up in situations?
Okay, so there's quite a few different questions there, weren't there? So I'll let other people answer their experience, because obviously I can't speak to that. On assessment, certainly on the assessments that I run, normally we'll try and find an opportunity to talk about it. We'll obviously, if there's no water in the rivers, there's no point in just going and getting wet for the sake of it in a flat bit of water, you know. So and quite often I just use it as a further training opportunity. And my philosophy on those people that have maybe been trained by me is that when I train that for ML is that it's a bit like if I teach you how to do crevasse rescue, I want you to learn that you don't ever want to fall in a crevasse. You know, I want you to learn that the thing that you want to do is keep that rope as tight as possible and be really careful and try and avoid classes in the afternoon. You know, like that's what I want you to learn. If I'm teaching you to ice axe break, then I don't actually want you to learn to ice axe break particularly. I want you to learn to not fall over. You know, and if you do find yourself off your feet, get back on your feet really quick, because yeah. So that's my philosophy really on river crossings is that. But then what Ros came up with then is that I know quite a lot of people use their mountain leader in all over the world, and that you know, if you go tramping in New Zealand, you'll cross big rivers. That's what you'll do. You know, if you go, well, loads of different places all over the world, South America, or, you know, you will end up crossing significant bodies of water. And I don't want you as an ML to take that lightly. You know, so that's my philosophy on the training, is that we're sort of discouraged from doing it at all. But my point is that I want people to do it in the fastest, coldest, deepest bit of water, so they come away going, blimmin' heck, that was really scary. And I would think very long and hard before I take a group in. You know, so does that answer it?
Yeah, I think it was just, I mean, it's not something that's really a massive part of the ML, but obviously it's there in the training. It's something that in an emergency you would have to know how to do it. It's just not something that's really focused on, and it was just, obviously I would avoid it at all costs because something's gone wrong if you have to do that. But yeah, it was just really people's experience of ways around it and what they've done and how they've handled it and stuff, really.
I can add something to that. Both parts, actually. I lived in New Zealand for a couple of years, and Chris is right. You cross a lot of rivers, and some of them are quite braided and quite shallow, sort of you know, calf deep. But some of them can be pretty big, especially if they're up a wee bit. And there's a couple of times we had to wait a day just for it to go down so we could actually cross. But going back to the ML assessment, I think the key is if you're well prepared. In my experience, if you're well prepared for the assessment, I found the assessment to be another training course. Basically, I learned some more on it, and I did mine up in Fort William with Richard Bentley, and we did our river crossing in Glen Nevis and on the River Nevis, and it was strong. We spoke about all of the options available to us to cross, and that was really the assessment. And then he said, well, you know, it's the end of the day now, you might as well just try it here. And I was surprised at how strong that water was, and it was only mid-thigh, and there were 6 of us in a triangle formation, and you know, we were struggling to stand up. So it was an impressive learning experience. And, you know, I'll just say it again, if you're well prepared for your assessment, you'll learn a lot on it.
Yeah.
Can I just add to Alistair's point? Totally agree with that. You know, it was an assessment, but I came away with far more than I actually went with during the whole experience. But during the assessment, Chris, I was with John Chamberlain, and I remember the one thing he said to me about crossing was it was the 3 Ds, which was don't, or delay, or detour. And he said, those are the 3 Ds, just abide by those, whatever you do. And it just resonated and it stuck in my head. So it was don't, delay, or detour.
Yeah.
And he said, stick to those and you won't go far wrong.
No, that's great. Thanks for that. It's great, Tom. And Alistair's point about having to wait, that's the delay thing, isn't it? Yeah, don't delay or detour. Yeah. So, delaying, most mountain rivers come up really fast and go down really fast. So very often if you wait a few matter of hours, they come up and go down really quick. So, yeah.
Thank you. That I've written that down actually. That's really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Can I ask a question for the RCI? Just like obviously with you climbing and great, it's you climb yourself, but for the supervising or assisting in sessions, I think that's the thing that I'm getting a bit anxious about, in the sense that I know you say that you can do it with friends, but taking your friends out climbing and either rigging up top rope or bottom rope is different than taking out somebody you don't know. So it's just, where can you get that sort of experience in the sense? Because I know, like I've talked to people and it says, oh, just go to outdoor companies and ask them, but yeah, they'll say, oh yeah, join in, but not necessarily with the bits that you want to like get involved in, like rigging up and stuff. So it's just like what to do, how to get, like what Alistair says about being well prepared before the assessment.
Yeah. So no, that's a good question, Dominic. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. My experience is, Dominic, and hopefully this will be an encouragement to you, if you're a strong personal climber, then you'll generally make a good instructor. The problem that I get is that I get people that are not climbers, but are just done instruction, and they tend to make poor instructors because they haven't got that big foundation of being a personal climber. It's very easy to turn a personal climber and help them to get good at looking after other people, rigging, stuff like that. So it's a bit like a mountain leader person. So like Sharon's, I know because I've seen a lot, but done loads in the mountains. She's got loads of experience of being out in the hills. She'll have no problem because she knows her environment. She understands it, and she understands how she responds to it. And she'll watch other people, and she'll go, they're starting to do this, so I need to change and start doing this because things are going to start going pear-shaped pretty soon. Now, so personal climbers, so when I see somebody that's coming for assessment for an RCI Rock Climbing Instructors Award that has a strong personal logbook, I'll go, they should be fine. And when I might have to tweak a couple of little things to help them become a bit more efficient. I might have to show them a few new little things as part of the assessment, but I know they'll get it because they're bolting it onto a climber's mindset. Whereas an instructor tends to do things like they can do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if anything goes wrong in that system, they don't know what to do. Whereas a climber will just go, we've got to 2 and now 3's not going to work. So I'm going to go back to 2, fix that, and go back to 3, 4. Right, okay, I can fix it. So does that answer your question? So I understand what you're saying is that it's very difficult currently to get that good experience because so few companies are going out. For me personally, when I'm working, I quite often invite young instructors to come along. So we had Tom was we were working together, like doing some personal climbing, and I got a guy who's going for his not MIA Rock Climbing and Mountaineering Instructors Award, and so he's going for that, and I know he is, and so I'm like, okay, here's a great opportunity for you to come along and watch me teach Tom how to lead climb, and and he found that really, you know, he asked lots of questions afterwards and found it really valuable. So I think that most people that are involved in the outdoors have had that at some point, and there's probably people on this call or part of this group that would be quite happy to have you come along on some of their sessions just to observe or to help out, you know, when things start opening up, which hopefully will be fairly soon.
Yeah.
Does that answer your questions? Does anyone else want to join in with anything on that?
Dominic, was one of the things you were asking about was having people you didn't know and taking them out and doing stuff with them?
Yeah, I mean, like going out with friends, I know how they act, I know what they're like.
I've just got one suggestion on that, because it's something that happens to, well, I won't say me regularly, but I'm a member of a meetup group, Yorkshire Climbers, and we have a lot of people. There's about 1,500 members, of which I only ever see about 20, if I'm lucky, who are the regulars. There's all these other people who kind of join up, and you might get one or two, but I've occasionally done, and I'm not qualified, very, very soft introduction sessions with some of them, because they're just keen, and they don't want to do it at the wall, and that's a source of bodies, if you like. So it might be worth looking around for one of those meetup groups and offering your services to some of the novice climbers to take them out sometime. If you want to do it in Yorkshire, we'd be happy to run one for you.
No, I mean, that's it. I mean, that's what I need. I mean, I am a member of a club in like Cleveland Mountaineering Club, and I have gone out on a couple of times, but it's just like trying to do it consistently, because I've got my indoor award and I've done like loads of experience with the school, with the scouts, but I really want to get my RCI, so I want to be confident outside. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and like, it's, as you say, rigging up. Like the thing what I'm not dreading, because like, I think it's quite a good challenge, is the abseiling. There's not a lot of opportunities in, say, for example, North Yorkshire Moors to rig up abseils, and they actually if they don't want it, just because it's another like potential danger. So there's signs on, say, oh, and you know, if, say, for example, you go for your assessment and they say, oh, rig up, then you just think, well, I haven't got much experience of that. And, you know, but where you want to be like confident, as you say.
If you want to come down to Brimham or Armscliffs at some time, I'll be happy to go out with you and see if we can get some fresh blood from Yorkshire climbers for you to play with.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I love Armscliff. Brimham, I'm not a fan. Like, I've climbed there once, and no, I didn't enjoy it.
Great.
Depends where you go on Brimham.
Yeah. But no, I would, more experience the better.
Great. That sounds good, Dominic. I would encourage you as well that basically, if you're bothered, you'll pass the assessment fine. But it's people that just turn up and wing it that tend to struggle.
Yeah.
And they tend to be 20-something and male.
Well, I'm half that. I'm not 20 though.
Aye. Yeah, no, I think you're past that. So, you know, most people that bother to prepare do fine.
It is. I mean, that's it. I mean, during the lockdown, I mean, when I first did like those videos that you put on, because I was like getting stressed, I was like stuck at home. And then when I saw them, I was like, all right. So I was just out in the garden being silly and stuff. So all that's helped as well. So yeah, just can't wait.
Just on rigging, we did a video last week on rigging abseils, so maybe that'll help as well. It just needs a bit of tweaking before we can publish it. So hopefully that'll help you.
Yeah, brilliant.
But hands on with that now. So I think our time has sort of come to an end. It's gone pretty quick, isn't it? Carlo wants to ask something.
Can't hear you, Carlo. You're on mute.
Just
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Right, good. I'm up in Landale tomorrow afternoon, and I'm planning to go up to 3 towns, maybe Bofell, from Hellgill.
Yes.
And I need to cross the farm at Stuland. Do you know the farmer, if he's friendly or not?
Yeah, he's okay. He'll be all right. The path goes right through the middle. Yeah, it's all right.
It's all right?
Yeah.
Okay. Need to blow some cobwebs.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. Okay, so I think we're going to have to finish there. Lovely to see you all. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Maybe next time we'll do less intros and more questions. Do you think that'd be good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thumbs up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and as ever, you know, just put your questions on the mentor group if you've got anything, or give me a phone call, or you know, whatever. So, you know, if you're stuck and want to know anything, I'll try and help you. Okay, lovely to see you all.
Thank you.
Oh,
Very much. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
bye, everyone.
Thank you.